The canvas trembled in Emma's hands as the knife sliced through the last taut string of her heart, the blade not her own but forged from words she'd never seen coming. "I can't do this anymore," Esme whispered, her voice a fracture in the humid Andalusian night, eyes like shadowed olives gleaming with unshed storms. In that instant, the vibrant markets of Seville blurred into a watercolor smear, and Emma knew her masterpiece of love was unraveling thread by thread. Emma Harper had chased the sun to Seville 3 months ago, a 25-year-old painter from Brooklyn with a backpack full of half-finished sketches and a grant that promised reinvention. The city's labyrinthine alleys, alive with the scent of orange blossoms and sizzling churros, were supposed to be her muse, a far cry from the gray grind of New York winters. She'd rented a cramped apartment in the Triana neighborhood, its wrought iron balcony overlooking the Guadalquivir River, like a secret confessional. But inspiration had been as elusive as a flamenco dancer's fleeting glance. Her canvases gathered dust, strokes of ochre and sienna mocking her from the easel. That's when Esme Ruiz entered her world. Not with a bang but a whisper of silk against stone. It was a sweltering July afternoon when Emma first spotted her from that balcony, cigarette in hand, sketching the furious colorful chaos below. Esme was watering her geraniums 2 doors down, her movements graceful, deliberate, like she was conducting an invisible orchestra. Mid-30s Emma guessed, with hair the color of midnight oil that cascaded in loose waves down her back, framing a face sculpted by some Renaissance hand, high cheekbones, full lips curved in perpetual contemplation, and eyes that held the depth of ancient wells. She wore a simple white sundress that hugged her lithe frame, barefoot on the terracotta tiles, humming a melody that floated up like smoke. Emma's pencil froze midline. Who was this woman, blooming amid the faded stucco and laundry lines strung like prayer flags? She watched, transfixed, as Esme paused to trace a finger along a petal, her touch reverent, almost sorrowful. In that moment Emma's dry well cracked open. She dashed inside, grabbed her oils and painted until dawn, the curve of a neck, the play of light on olive skin, shadows that whispered secrets. The next day fate, or a faulty lock, conspired. Emma's door stuck, and as she wrestled with it, Esme appeared, key in hand like a knight from a faded tapestry. "Permiso," she said, her voice a velvet rumble with a faint Andalusian lilt, though her English was flawless, laced with an American twang that hinted at hidden passports. Up close, she smelled of jasmine and salt air, her gaze locking onto Emma's with an intensity that made the younger woman's pulse stutter. "Thanks," Emma managed, cheeks flushing under the scrutiny. "I'm Emma, the new neighbor who apparently can't open a door." "Esme," she replied, a smile tugging at her lips like the first crack in a dam. "And doors are overrated. They keep the good stories out." She lingered a beat too long, her fingers brushing Emma's as she handed back the key, sending a spark that had nothing to do with static electricity. From there, it unfolded like a forbidden sonnet. Esme was a translator, she said, working freelance on literary gems, Poe into Spanish, Lorca into English, while tending a small rooftop garden that yielded figs and dreams. Born in Seville but schooled in Boston during her rebellious teens, she carried the city's fire tempered by New England's frost. No family mentioned, no lover in sight, just a quiet life woven from books and solitude. Emma, emboldened by cheap Rioja and the anonymity of siestas, shared her own fragments. The divorce of artist parents that left her chasing permanence on canvas, the grant that was her ticket out of waitressing purgatory. Their balconies became a bridge. Evenings found them leaning over the divide, wine glasses clinking in toasts to unexpected strokes of color. Esme would recite lines from Neruda. "I want to do with you what spring does with the cherry trees," her voice wrapping around Emma like a shawl against the cooling breeze. Emma sketched her covertly at first, then openly, capturing the way Esme's laughter lit her face like bioluminescence. "You're dangerous," Emma teased one night, charcoal smudging her fingers as she outlined Esme's profile. "You make me want to paint again." "And you make me want to live in the light," Esme countered, her eyes darkening with something unspoken, a shadow that Emma chalked up to the wine. The first kiss happened under a canopy of stars, during the Feria de Abril's distant echoes. They'd wandered the Triana streets after a tapas crawl, laughter bubbling like gazpacho. At the river's edge where lanterns bobbed like fireflies, Esme turned, her hand cupping Emma's cheek. "Tell me to stop," she murmured, breath warm against Emma's skin. But Emma didn't. Their lips met, soft at first, tentative as a brush on fresh gesso, then deepening into a hunger that tasted of olives and possibility. Emma's world tilted, colors sharpening, the indigo of night, the gold in Esme's eyes. It was messy, real, the kind of kiss that rewrote horizons. In the weeks that followed, Emma's art bloomed. Her studio overflowed with portraits of Esme, reclining amid sunflowers, fierce against storm clouds, vulnerable in the hush of dawn. Gallery scouts in Madrid took notice. A solo show was whispered. But it was more than canvas. Esme became her compass. Nights tangled in sheets scented with lavender, mornings trading stories over café con leche. Esme opened up in fragments. A childhood shadowed by her father's gambling debts, a scholarship that spirited her to the States, a return to Seville to nurse her ailing mother. Love is a thief, she'd say, tracing Emma's collarbone. It steals your solitude but leaves you richer. Emma believed her wholly foolishly. She wrote letters to her Brooklyn friends, gushing about the woman who made her feel seen, not just observed. She's my muse, my mirror, she penned. Yet cracks appeared, subtle as hairline fractures in porcelain. Esme's phone would buzz at odd hours, silenced with a flick of her thumb. Late nights she'd slip out for walks, returning with wind-tousled hair and evasive smiles. Just clearing my head, she'd murmur, pulling Emma close. Emma pushed the doubts down, burying them under layers of cerulean and rose. By September, as the heat mellowed into amber afternoons, Emma's grant teetered. Her latest series, Echoes of Ember, needed a centerpiece, something raw to anchor the vulnerability. Esme suggested the Alcazar Gardens at twilight, where Moorish arches framed eternal whispers. They went hand in hand, the air thick with jasmine and history. There, amid fountains that sang of lost empires, Esme posed against a pomegranate tree, its fruit heavy with promise. Emma painted feverishly, capturing the way light fractured on Esme's skin, the subtle tension in her stance, like a bird poised for flight. That night, back in Esme's apartment, they made love by candlelight, bodies a symphony of sighs and silk. Afterward, sated and tangled, Esme confessed a sliver. I was married once, you know, to a man. It was expected, but it broke me open. Emma held her, heart aching for the girl who'd bartered her truth for peace. You're free now, she whispered. With me. Esme's laugh was bittersweet. Freedom has chains, mi amor. Always. The betrayal came on a rain-lashed October evening, the kind where Seville's skies wept for forgotten saints. Emma had spent the day at a preliminary gallery meeting, buzzing with validation. Her show was greenlit for spring. She rushed home early, armed with paella ingredients and a bottle of Esme's favorite manzanilla, dreaming of a surprise anniversary, 3 months, marked with a silly sketch of them as knights. The apartment door was ajar, murmurs spilling out like spilled ink. She froze in the threshold. Esme sat at the kitchen table, her back to Emma, head bowed over a letter. But it wasn't solitude. Across from her was a woman Emma didn't recognize. Early 40s, sharp-suited, with cropped silver hair and eyes like chipped flint. Her hand rested possessively on Esme's, voice low and urgent. You can't keep running, Esme. She's waiting in Boston. The divorce papers are signed. You owe her this much. Esme's shoulders trembled. Clara, please. I left that life. Elena. She doesn't understand. Clara's laugh was a blade. Understand? After you shattered her? The affair with that American girl in grad school was one thing, but this? Playing house in Seville like some expat fantasy? Elena's rebuilt her life, but she needs closure. And you need to stop this delusion before it destroys you both. Emma's world contracted to a pinprick. Fair. Elena. The pieces slotted. Esme's silences, the late walks that smelled of the river's underbelly, perhaps frantic calls to an ex-wife across the Atlantic. The American twang? Not just school. A life tethered to Boston's Ivy Leagues and hidden heartbreaks. She backed away, paella bag slipping from numb fingers, crashing like thunder. Esme whirled, face draining of color. Emma! But Emma was already fleeing, down the stairs slick with rain, into the storm that mirrored her soul. The Guadalquivir roared below the bridge, swollen and indifferent, as she screamed into the gale, rage, grief, the fool's lament. How had she not seen? The muse was a mirage painted over lies. Days blurred into a haze of turpentine and tears. Emma barricaded herself in her studio, slashing canvases with a palette knife. Esme's face reduced to scarred abstractions. Calls went unanswered. Knocks echoed into voids. Esme's note slipped under the door. Poor favor, let me explain. We're fuel for the hearth. The gallery buzzed with concern. Her show deadline loomed like a guillotine. On the fifth night, as thunder rattled the shutters, Emma cracked. Not from weakness but a bone-deep need for truth, ugly as it was. She crossed the balcony divide, pounding on Esme's door until it yielded. Esme looked wrecked, dark circles framing haunted eyes, hair unkempt, a half-empty glass of sherry trembling in her hand. You came, she breathed, stepping aside like an invitation to judgment. Explain, Emma demanded, voice steel-wrapped in silk. All of it. No poetry, no pretty lies. They sank onto the worn sofa, the room a cocoon of shadows and regret. Esme's story unspooled like a frayed tapestry. Married at 22 to Elena, a driven professor, in a Boston ceremony that felt like armor against her family's conservative grip. Seville's pull had been escape after her mother's death, but Elena followed, their love curdling into obligation. The grad school affair, with a woman fleeting and firebright, shattered the facade. Esme fled back to Spain, divorce papers trailing like ghosts. You, Esme said, voice cracking, were the first real breath since. But Clara. She's Elena's lawyer, her friend. She came to force the final signatures to end it clean. I didn't betray you, Emma. I was ending the betrayal of myself. Emma's chest heaved, fury warring with the ache of recognition. And me? Am I just the rebound, the exotic distraction before you jet back to your real life? Esme's hand reached, tentative. No. You're the color I forgot existed. But I was afraid you'd see the mess and run. I should have told you from the start. The dam broke then, tears mingling with recriminations. Emma railed at the omissions, the half-truths that poison trust like arsenic in wine. Esme absorbed it, unflinching, her own sobs a confession. Hours passed in that crucible, words forging something sharper than before. Honesty raw and redeeming. Dawn crept in, painting the room in hesitant gold. Exhausted, they lay side by side on the rug, hands entwined like roots seeking soil. What now? Emma whispered, the question a precipice. Esme turned, eyes clear for the first time in days. We rebuild. Or we walk. But no more shadows. Emma chose rebuild, tentative as a first sketch. It wasn't fairy tale easy. Therapy sessions in halting Spanish, nights where doubts resurfaced like weeds. Esme signed the papers, severing the last ties to Boston, her freedom hard-won and bittersweet. Emma's art evolved. Portraits now layered with fractures, gold leaf over cracks, beauty born of breakage. The gallery show, veins of vermilion. Open to murmurs of genius, Esme in the front row, her presence a quiet anchor. Winter softened into spring, Seville's azahar perfuming the air with renewal. They traveled the western hills, Ronda's gorge, Cadiz windswept shores, mapping new memories. Esme took up painting too, clumsy strokes beside Emma's mastery, laughter in the smears. Love, they learned, wasn't a canvas to perfect but a living thing, fed by sunlight and storms. One evening on that same balcony where it began, Emma unveiled her final piece. Them intertwined against the Guadalquivir's gleam, faces alight with the quiet fire of survivors. To us, she toasted, clinking glasses, the thieves who stole each other's hearts and gave them back whole. Esme smiled, pulling her close. And richer for it. In the end, it wasn't perfection that bound them, but the human grace of trying. The messy, merciful art of loving through the veil. But grace, Emma discovered, was a fickle patron, demanding tribute in ways that tested the soul's sinews. As summer's heat returned, coiling around Seville like a serpent, subtle fissures re-emerged. Not in Esme's truths, which she'd laid bare like an open book, but in the external tempests that battered their fragile idol. The gallery's success had thrust Emma into a spotlight she'd never craved. Interviews in El País praising her transatlantic vulnerability. Whispers of a New York residency that dangled like forbidden fruit. Esme watched from the sidelines, her translator gigs sporadic, her garden yielding bountiful but her spirit wilting under the weight of what-ifs. It started with a letter, innocuous at first. A cream envelope slipped under the door, postmarked from Boston. Esme paled as she read it, folding it away before Emma could glimpse the script. Just old correspondence, she said, too brightly, busying herself with chamomile tea. But Emma, attuned now to the cadence of concealment, felt the chill. That night, as they lay in the hammock strung between balcony posts, rocking to the lullaby of distant guitars, she pressed gently. Elena. Esme sighed, the sound heavy as summer air. Her. Reaching out post-divorce. Wants to. Reconnect. As friends, she says. Closure, amends. Jealousy wasn't the blade it once was, but it nicked all the same. Emma imagined Elena. Poised, intellectual, the woman who'd held Esme's youth in her grasp. And you? What do you want? A pause, stars wheeling overhead. Nothing. Everything's done. But it stirs the silt, you know? Makes me question if I'm enough for this, for us. Emma pulled her closer, heartbeat sinking to the rhythm of reassurance. You're everything. The silt settles, we stay clear. Yet the letter lingered like a specter, and soon Clara arrived again, this time not as harbinger but peacemaker, inviting Esme to a neutral cafe in Santa Cruz. Just coffee, Esme promised, kissing Emma's forehead. I'll be back before the heat breaks. Emma nodded, burying unease in a fresh canvas. Abstract swirls of crimson and teal, emotions unchained. But hours stretched, the sun dipping low without Esme's key in the lock. Panic bloomed, irrational but insistent, visions of reconciliations whispered over cortados. When Esme finally returned, flushed and disheveled from the siesta hour crowds, Emma's relief soured into accusation. What took so long? Another closure session. Esme's eyes flashed, weariness igniting to spark. Clara drove me home, traffic on the bridge. Dios, Emma, do you hear yourself? After everything, you still doubt. The argument erupted, words flying like shards of mosaic. Emma's fear of abandonment clashing against Esme's exhaustion from perpetual proof. I'm not her. Esme cried, voice echoing off stucco walls. I'm not the villain in your Brooklyn breakup stories. Emma retorted, tears hot. But you're the one who taught me walls have ears, and lies slip through. They parted in fury, Emma storming to her studio, Esme to the garden, where she tore at weeds with bare hands. Dawn found them reconciled in silence, apologies murmured over burnt toast, but the scar tissue tightened, a reminder that love's fabric frayed under friction. The true storm brewed farther afield in the form of family, a specter Esme had banished to footnotes. Her brother Javier, a bull-breeder from the Huelva Plains, descended unannounced one crisp November weekend, his pickup truck rumbling into Triana like a declaration of war. Broad-shouldered, with a mustache like a broom and eyes that judged from shadowed brows, Javier embodied the old Seville, machismo veiled as tradition, faith a cudgel for conformity. He'd heard of the Yankee artist. He grunted over a lunch of Jaman and suspicion, his gaze dissecting Emma like a poorly hung painting. Esme, ever the diplomat, bridged with stories of their garden yields and Emma's upcoming exhibition in Córdoba. But Javier's warmth thawed only for his sister, thawing into a torrent after too much Ribera del Duero. This life, Esme, it's not you. Mama would weep. Come home to the finca. Real roots, not this bohemian farce. Esme's face hardened, a fortress rebuilt. My life is here, Javier. With Emma. And Mama understood more than you ever did. He leaned in, voice oil slick low. Understood? She died begging you to make amends with Elena, to honor the vows. This is shame on our name. The table fell silent, Emma's fork suspended, heart pounding with the weight of lineages clashing. Later, alone on the balcony, Esme shattered, sobs racking her frame as she clutched a faded photo of their mother, stern yet soft-eyed. He doesn't see me, she whispered. Never has. To him, I'm the daughter who shamed us, the one who chose whispers over weddings. Emma enveloped her, rocking gently. Then let him go. We're our own family now. But Javier's visit lingered, a poison seeping. Esme withdrew, nights spent poring over old letters, questioning the bridges she'd burned. Emma's art suffered too. Strokes hesitant, colors muted, as if Javier's judgment had drained the palette. The Córdoba show loomed, a test of resilience, but rehearsals felt like performances for ghosts. Climax crested during the exhibit's eve, as rain lashed the city in biblical fury. Emma, frantic with final touches, Sent Esme to fetch frames from the framers in the Barrio Santa Cruz. Hours passed. No return. Phone dead, streets flooded. Emma's mind spun worst-case reels. Accident on slick cobbles, or worse, Javier's truck spiriting Esme away to Huelva's unforgiving soil. She ventured out, umbrella futile against the deluge, splashing through alleys alive with shuttered saints. At the framers the owner shrugged. Senor Ruiz? Left hours ago. Panic propelled her onward to the river, where bridges bowed under wind-whipped waves. There, in the shadow of the Torre del Oro, she found Esme, not fled but collapsed against the balustrade, soaked and shaking, Javier's photo clutched like a talisman. Esme! Emma cried, dropping to her knees, arms a bulwark against the storm. Javier had cornered her en route, his truck idling like a beast. Words had flown, accusations of delusion, pleas laced with paternalism. Come home, Hermana, before you drag this stranger down with you. Esme had refused, but the confrontation cracked her wide, old wounds festering anew. He said you're poison, she gasped, rain mingling with tears. That I'll ruin you like I ruined everything else. Emma's heart fractured but fury forged resolve. He's wrong. You're my salvation, not my curse. She hauled Esme up, their embrace a defiance against the gale. Bodies pressed in sodden solidarity. They stumbled home, dripping trails collapsing into a hot bath where confessions bubbled like steam. Fears of inadequacy, dreams deferred. The terror of loving boldly in a world that clipped wings. From that tempest they emerged tempered. Esme wrote Javier a letter, final as a full stop. Boundaries drawn, love unapologetic. He didn't reply, but the silence was liberation. Emma's show in Córdoba dazzled. Critics lauding the tempestuous intimacy. Buyers snapping up pieces that bled authenticity. Esme stood beside her at the vernissage, hand in hers, a quiet revolution. Yet humanism's lesson was in the ordinary graces. Lazy Sundays harvesting figs, Esme's clumsy watercolors adorning their fridge, Emma teaching her the blues scales on a borrowed guitar. Love wasn't grand gestures alone, but the daily alchemy of choosing each other amid the mundane. Dishes divided, doubts dispelled with dawn coffee. As autumn waned, Emma received the New York offer. A 6-month residency, prestige and peril intertwined. The choice loomed, a fork in their river. Go, Esme urged, eyes steady. Fly. I'll be your anchor here. But Emma demurred. Not without you. We go together or not at all. Esme's smile was sunrise. Then let's paint the city red. They departed in December, suitcases light with sketches, hearts heavy with promise. New York awaited, a canvas vast and unforgiving, but they faced it hand in hand, two women, woven from Spain's sun and America's grit. Their story a testament to love's quiet rebellion. New York hit like a freight train of frost and fluorescence, the Hudson's icy breath a stark counterpoint to Seville's embrace. Emma and Esme arrived in a blizzard's hush, their sublet in the village a shoebox of exposed brick and ambition, steam heat rattling like impatient applause. For Emma it was homecoming laced with vertigo. The subway's rumble echoing childhood treks to MoMA, sidewalks thrumming with the polyglot pulse she'd fled. For Esme it was reinvention's edge. Boston's ghosts too near, yet the city's anonymity a balm. The residency at the Silver Lining Atelier was a whirlwind. Loft studios flooded with natural light. Mentors dissecting her Andalusian inflections with surgical praise. Emma thrived, canvases expanding to diptychs of transatlantic longing. Seville's ochres bleeding into Manhattan's charcoals, Esme's silhouette threading both. But success's shadow was isolation. Late nights at the easel left Esme adrift in a sea of takeout and tentative job hunts. Her translation work went remote, manuscripts piling like unanswered prayers, but the cultural whiplash, baristas mistaking her accent for exotic, cabs speeding past her waves, gnawed at her core. You're fading, Emma noticed one February evening. Snowflakes waltzing past the window as Esme stared into her untouched Merlot. Talk to me. Esme's fingers traced the glass's stem. A habit born of contemplation. This city, it's a mirror, amor. Shows me the parts one hid. In Seville I was the local enigma. Here, I'm just another immigrant chasing shadows. Emma knelt, hands on knees, eyes locking with that well-deep gaze. You're not a shadow. You're my light. We can adjust. Weekends in Brooklyn, tapas spots that remind you of home. They tried. Dim sum Sundays morphing into paella experiments. Esme's garden dreams transplanted to a fire escape herb pot. Laughter returned, fragile as first crocuses, but beneath it simmered Esme's unspoken storm. A call from Javier, terse and thawing. The finca needs you, he'd said. Mama's grave is overgrown. And, I'm sorry. The olive branch dangled, but Esme hesitated, fearing regression's pull. Spring unfurled in cherry blossoms and Emma's rising star. A group show at the Whitney, her pieces hailed as queer cartographies of desire. The opening was electric. Critics in tailored wool, collectors with checkbooks at the ready, flashes popping like celebratory gunfire. Esme, elegant in a borrowed sheath of midnight silk, clung to Emma's arm amid the swirl, her pride a quiet flame. But as champagne flowed and encounter doused it, Elena, uninvited yet inevitable, gliding through the crowd like a specter in pearls. She was as Emma had imagined, poised with laugh lines etching wisdom, silver streaks in her bob a crown of quiet power. Esme, she said, voice a bridge from buried yesteryears, pulling her into a hug that lingered a breath too long. You look radiant. Esme stiffened, then softened, murmuring pleasantries. Emma hovered, a third wheel in time's tangled wheel, excused herself for air. In the coatroom's hush she overheard fragments. Elena's I've missed our talks. Esme's halting life moves. A shared laugh that knifed Emma's gut. Betrayal's echo, not in infidelity but in the ease of old rhythms, the what-ifs that whispered of roads untaken. She confronted Esme later, in their apartment's steam-fogged kitchen, dawn painting the skyline in hesitant pinks. You lit up with her. Like I wasn't even there. Esme's face crumpled, defenses rising like flood walls. It was civility, Emma. Not that. Elena's past, your present. But the past pulls, doesn't it? Stronger than we admit. Emma's voice cracked, vulnerability bared. I see you too, and I wonder if I'm just the interlude, the passionate detour before sensibility calls you home. The fight was surgical, incisions precise. Emma's insecurities flaring from parental ghosts, Esme's guilt a Gordian knot of loyalties. You think I want that cage again? Esme hurled, tears carving tracks. I chose you, messy, alive, real. But you keep waiting for the other shoe, like love's a trapdoor. Emma recoiled, the truth a mirror's glare. Maybe because I've fallen through so many. They circled for days, silences thicker than the humid haze of impending summer. Emma threw herself into work. A solo commission for a queer arts collective, portraits of lovers defying odds, inspired yet haunted. Esme vanished into freelance depths, translating Garcia Lorca's blood-soaked odes, her own emotions bleeding onto pages. The breaking point came mid-June. Heat wave turning the city into a forge. Javier called again, this time with urgency. A fall from a ladder, cracked ribs, the finca adrift. Come, Esme. For family. She booked a flight, one way, telling Emma over cold takeout. Just a week. To help him heal, close the circle. Emma's nod was wooden, heart of ice. Go. But come back. Esme did, or tried. Huelva's plains enveloped her. Olive groves whispering of roots deep as memory. Javier, bandaged and humbled, shared stories over asado. Mama's hidden letters praising Esme's brave heart. His own regrets forged in solitude. Elena even wrote, a missive of genuine peace. Be happy. Truly. It was catharsis, a balm for old burns. But absence amplified Emma's voids. Alone in the village, she wandered Chelsea galleries, sketches frantic in her moleskine. Esme's absence a void begging fill. Doubts metastasized. Texts unanswered in the time zone shift. A photo Javier posted of Esme laughing amid finca sunsets. Elena's email address lingering in Esme's sent folder. Paranoia peaked in a midnight voicemail slurred with Pinot. Are you gone for good? Was it all a beautiful lie? Esme returned a day early, jet-lagged and resolute, finding Emma amid canvas carnage. Shredded studies, turpentine staining the floor like bloodless wounds. What have you done? She gasped, dropping her bag. Emma looked up, eyes red-rimmed. What you've done to us. The silence, the pull back home. It's eroding us. Esme knelt, gathering fragments. I went to mend, not to flee. Javier's changing. Elena's released me. But you're unraveling without trust. The climax unfolded not in screams but surrender. Emma confessed the voicemail, the spiral of fear born from love's intensity. I can't lose you, she wept. But I can't chain you either. Esme pulled her close, their foreheads touching like circuits completing. Then let's unlearn the chains. Together. From that nadir growth germinated. They sought a therapist in the village, a no-nonsense dyke with a Brooklyn bite who unpacked their luggage of legacies. Emma's fear of impermanence, Esme's guilt as cultural prodigal. Sessions were messy, revelations raw, but they emerged lighter, laughter reclaiming space. Summer solstice found them on a Coney Island blanket, boardwalk lights twinkling like distant furious. Esme sketched Emma's profile against the surf, lines sure for the first time. This city suits us, she said. Our own Spain with better bagels. Emma grinned, lacing fingers. And no bull breeders crashing the party. By fall, Emma's Whitney buzz evolved into a Grant extension. Esme landing a steady gig dubbing indie films, her voice that velvet lilt, sinking souls on screen. They adopted a rescue cat, a tabby terror named Lorca, whose chaos mirrored their joy. Love deepened in the details. Esme surprised Seville oranges at market, Emma's murals on their walls, evolving their story in vibrant loops. Yet the humanistic core lay in acceptance, of flaws as features, conflicts as compost for stronger blooms. One crisp October eve as leaves carpeted Washington Square, Emma proposed not with rings but resolve. Marry me? Not for papers or parades but promise, through storms and silences. Esme's yes was a vow, sealed with a kiss amid buskers' ballots. No grand wedding, just a courthouse elopement, witnesses a barista and a poet, ring simple silver etched with siempre. Back in Seville for Christmas, Javier met them at the finca, awkward handshakes thawing to toasts, his gruff bienvenida, a bridge mended. Elena sent a card, blessings inked with grace. The world didn't applaud but their circle tightened, a tapestry of chosen kin. Years wove forward like threads in a loom, each season adding texture to the fabric of Emma and Esme's union. By their 5th anniversary, the village sublet had bloomed into a Brooklyn brownstone, its garden a riot of espaliered figs and wild asters, a nod to Triana's terracotta heart. Emma's career crested waves. A TED Talk on art as emotional cartography, monographs stacking bookstore shelves, her style a beacon for young queer creators navigating identity's mazes. Esme, ever the quiet force, helmed a translation collective, amplifying Latine voices in English harbors, her Boston scars now badges of resilience. But life's drama didn't retire with triumphs. It evolved, testing in subtler symphonies. The first real conflict post-vows came via biology's whisper, a mutual friend's fertility journey sparking Esme's dormant ache. Over sangria at a Bushwick garden party, amid fireflies and fiddles, she confessed, I want a child, Emma. Our child. Roots we plant together. Emma's heart stuttered, joy tangled with terror. At 30, her world was palette and passport. Motherhood loomed like an uncharted canvas, vast and vulnerable. I do too, she admitted, voice small. But the fear. What if I paint us into a corner? What if I'm not enough? Esme's hand found hers, steady as Guadalquivir's flow. We're enough. Always have been. The path was labyrinthine, IVF consultations in chilled clinics, hormone mists clouding Esme's clarity, Emma's sketches turning to sonograms of possibility. Setbacks struck like summer squalls. Failed cycles, grief's quiet keening over gelato tubs. Esme's resolve frayed, old doubts resurfacing. Maybe it's punishment for the vows I broke. Emma countered with ferocity, dragging her to the therapist's couch, where they unpacked the myth of cosmic retribution. Betrayal's shadow flickered anew, not from lovers past but self-sabotage. During a lean cycle, Esme withdrew into work, manuscripts a fortress against failure's sting. Emma, raw from a scathing review dubbing her overhyped, lashed out one rain-slicked night. You're running again, hiding in words while our dream drowns. Esme's retort was a thunderclap. And you're clinging to control, painting our pain like it's aesthetic. This isn't art, Emma. It's us breaking. The chasm widened, nights in separate studios, Brooklyn's brownstones echoing with solitude. Emma sought solace in the Williamsburg Bridge's span, sketching the skyline's defiant glow, realizing her fear wasn't inadequacy but loss of Esme's light dimmed by deferral. Esme meanwhile wandered Prospect Park's paths, Lorca's successor, a calico named Frida, trotting beside her brother's voice of phantom. Family's blood, not choice. Reconciliation brewed in a mundane miracle. A positive test, faint as hope's first line, on a Tuesday gray with drizzle. They stared at the stick on the bathroom tile, laughter bubbling through tears, joy unfiltered, terror tamed. "We're doing this," Emma whispered, hand on Esme's still flat belly. Mess and all. Pregnancy unfolded in tender dramas. Esme's cravings for Seville olives at 3 a.m., Emma's murals on the nursery walls, whimsical worlds of floating canvases and starry siestas. Ultrasounds became rituals, tiny heartbeats a metronome to their mended rhythm. But climax crested in the third trimester, a routine check unveiling complications, preeclampsia shadowing Esme's glow, bedrest a sentence in their sunlit home. Fear gripped like winter's fist. Emma canceled a Paris opening, trading critiques for crib assembly, her art shifting to miniatures, poems in pigment for the babe's future gaze. Esme, confined yet combative, railed against fragility. "I fought for this freedom, and now it's caging me again." Their talks turned therapeutic marathons, unearthing layers. Esme's terror of repeating maternal silences, Emma's dread of legacy's echo. Delivery day dawned in August haze, labor a symphony of sweat and strategy. Hours in Mount Sinai's hush, Esme's hand crushing Emma's, doctors a chorus of calm. At 4:17 p.m., under lights like benevolent moons, Lucia entered, named for light, her cry a clarion piercing the veil. Tiny fists waving, eyes squinting at the world, she was their masterpiece. Esme's raven wisps, Emma's freckled warmth. Parenthood was its own drama. Sleepless sonnets, diapers as daily denouements, love's labor unromanticized yet profound. Lucia's firsts became their anchors. Gummy smiles over café con leche, wobbly steps across Triana-inspired rugs. Conflicts arose, inevitable. Emma's touring itch clashing with Esme's nesting. Javier's visits laced with unsolicited wisdom. But each forged deeper bonds, humanism in the humility of adaptation. By Lucia's third birthday, a garden fete under string lights, their circle had expanded. Elena, now a tentative aunt via holiday cards. Javier, softened grandfather with tales of Finca's fantastical. Brooklyn kin woven from art world allies and playgroup parents. Emma's latest series, Lineages in Bloom, chronicled it. Lucia's chubby cheeks amid olive branches, Esme's gaze eternal. One eve, as Lucia slumbered and stars pricked the Brooklyn sky, Emma and Esme swayed on the porch, wine forgotten in favor of whispers. "We almost lost this," Emma murmured, head on Esme's shoulder. Esme's laugh was river deep. "But we didn't. We chose the hard beautiful." In that choice lay their legacy, not flawless frescoes but living lines, of betrayal mended, conflicts composted, emotions etched in everyday grace. Love, they knew, was no static portrait but a perpetual motion. Enchanting, enduring, eternally theirs. The young artist had found not just inspiration, but a life painted in the bold hues of us.